Hi, it's Emily, Leiphart of Art from the Heart, and in this video I'm creating a Paper Smooches card using the Smarty Pants Icons and School Icons dies, which were released this month. Here I'm showing you the much-loved Smarty Pants stamp set, alongside the new coordinating Smarty Pants Icons dies. There are 5 in total. There are dies for the big pencil, the crayon, the globe, the professor, which is probably my most used Paper Smooches image, and, of course, the bookworm. I want to create a birthday card using the professor as a music teacher leading a choir on stage. This wood grain paper is from Kaiser Craft's base coat collection, and I'm going to use the curved edge from the Quotables dies to cut the stage. I've gone ahead and die cut the professor and his choir, which are the bookworms. I've chosen a black card base, and now I'm going to stamp the images on their respective die cuts. I need to use MEMENTO dye ink since I'll be coloring the images with Copic markers. Now I'm going to arrange the images on the card to determine how many worms I need to color. I always die cut and stamp a couple of extras in case of mistakes. Then the extras are available immediately if I need them. I decide that there are too many worms, but that I also want to add stage curtains. For that I'm going to use the shaft of the pencil from the School Icons dies. It has cute dry embossed lines as well as a scalloped edge, which makes it perfect for fancy billowed curtains. I'll die cut 3 for each side of the stage. First, I need to use wire snips to separate this die from the rest of them. I'm imagining lush red velvet curtains. I layer the pencil dies like so to create that authentic curtain look and set the card aside while I color in the images. I start by coloring in the professor's face and hand. Then I color in his pants, adding 2 darker shades for depth. I use the lightest shades of gray to color in his hair and shirt. I blend the lightest shades into the white cardstock with a colorless blender. I do use the refill on that during this project. Then I color in his tie to coordinate with the curtains, and add blue shoes for another shed of color. To finish the professor, I use glossy accents on his glasses and set it aside to dry. For the worms, I want to pick up on the professor's blue shoes, but the blue I chose is too dark. After coloring in 2 pairs of glasses, I decide to use a lighter blue. This is the perfect example of why I die cut and stamp extra images. In this case, I just toss those 2 worms in the recycling bin and grab another 2 for my stash. After the eyes are done, I color in the bodies with a warm gray. I use the colorless blender at the end to remove some of the gray that went outside the lines. Now I'm choosing a sentiment from the Happy Birthday stamp set. The 3 that I considered were the largest one-liners. In the end I decide on the big Happy Birthday sentiment since it fit best in the space between the curtains. After that I'll add some music notes from Perpetual Bliss and Beboppin. I'll be heat embossing the sentiment in white, so I need to prep the cardstock with my powder bag. After that I use Versamark ink to stamp the sentiment, then pour white embossing powder on the ink. Normally the powder bag works very well to prevent powder from sticking to the cardstock. So I don't know if it was because it was extremely humid when I made this card that several specks went here and there, but this was also the first time I tried heat embossing on this particular cardstock. It's thinner than most and isn't as fibrous as most cardstock I use. The easiest way to remove these before using a heat tool is to use a tiny brush. Then I quickly heat emboss the sentiment. When that's done, I use a dried tissue to wipe away the powder and also clean up my work mat. Now I can adhere the stage to the card. Next, I'm going to hang the curtains. I'm going to give them dimension by applying strong score tape to the tops of each section and foam tape to the other end. That way, they lie flat at the top and pop up at the bottom. After that is done, I can arrange the bookworms on the stage. Before positioning the professor, I center the card on the grid to determine the center of the card and line up the professor. He needs a shadow to ground him, so I'm going to stamp one using the Shadows stamp set. I use glue dots to adhere the worms, so they have a teeny bit of dimension but are still relatively flat. When the last worm is adhered, I apply foam tape to the professor and my card is done. I'm just being very careful not to touch his eyes, since the glossy accents haven't completely dried at this point. While looking at the card, I realize that I've forgotten to stamp the music notes. I pull out some gold ink and stamp the notes directly onto the black card base. Now the choir is really singing. Please refer to the supply links below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information about my cards. Thanks so much for watching.